Well, I'm back after a 2-week hiatus. My office move went okay, so most of that work is done. So back to the videos. Lots of things to talk about. I'm going to start off here with some excerpts from an article by Michael Lind, which was printed over at salon.com. The question is, are the American people obsolete? Have the American people outlived their usefulness to the rich minority in the United States? A number of trends suggest that the answer may be yes. In every industrial democracy since the end of World War II, there has been a social contract between the few and the many. In return for receiving a disproportionate amount of the gains from economic growth in a capitalist economy, the rich paid a disproportionate percentage of the taxes needed for public goods and a safety net for the majority. In North America and Europe, the economic elite agreed to this bargain because they needed ordinary people as consumers and soldiers. Without mass consumption, the factories in which the rich invested would grind to a halt. Without universal conscription in the world wars and selective conscription during the Cold War, the U.S. and its allies might have failed to defeat a totalitarian empire that would have created a world hostile to market economies. Globalization has eliminated the first reason for which the rich continue supporting this bargain at the nation-state level, while the privatization of the military threatens the other rationale. The offshoring of industrial production means that many American investors and corporate managers no longer need an American workforce in order to prosper. They can enjoy their streams of profits from factories in China while shutting down factories in the U.S. And if Chinese workers have the impertinence to demand higher wages in the future, American corporations can find low-wage labor in other countries. This marks a historic change in the relationship between capital and labor in the U.S. The robber barons of the 19th century generally lived near the American working class and could be threatened by strikes and frightened by the prospects of a revolution. But rioting Chinese workers are not going to burn down New York City or the Hamptons. Many U.S. multinationals that have transferred production to other countries continue to depend on a mass market. That's true, but that too may be changing. American consumers are tapped out, and as long as they're paying down their debt from the bubble years, private household demands for goods and services will grow slowly at best. In the long run, the fastest growing consumer markets, like the fastest growing labor markets, may be found in China, India, and other developing countries. Many of the highest paid individuals on Wall Street have grown rich through activities that have little or no connection to the American economy. They can flourish even if the U.S. declines, as long as they can tap into growth in other regions in the world. Thanks to deindustrialization, which is caused by both productivity and corporate offshoring, the overwhelming majority of Americans now work in the non-traded domestic services, like medical care or hotel services and such. To give you an insight into this mindset, the late Patricia Buckley, the socialite wife of William F. Buckley Jr., once said, "One simply can't live in Manhattan without at least 3 servants." If much of America's investor class no longer needs Americans, either as workers or consumers, elite Americans might still depend on ordinary Americans to protect them by serving in the military or police forces. Increasingly, however, Americans' professional army is being supplemented by contractors, in other words, mercenaries. A member of the elite can make money from factories in China that sell to consumers in India, while relying entirely or almost entirely on immigrant servants at one of the several homes they have in the country. With a foreign workforce for the corporations policed by brutal autocracies and non-voting immigrant servants in the U.S., the only thing missing is a non-voting immigrant mercenary army or police force whose legions can be deployed in foreign wars without creating grieving parents, widows, and children who vote in American elections. If the American rich increasingly do not depend on their wealth on American workers and American consumers for their safety, then it's hardly surprising that so many of them should be so hostile to paying taxes to support the infrastructure and the social programs to help the majority of the American people. It seems the rich don't need the rest of us anymore. It's a pretty long article. I just read a few paragraphs out of it. I'll post a link if I can find it again down at the bottom. Thanks for listening.